Hi, this is Isabel Litzler. Welcome to today's live on Facebook. So today's topic is how to navigate your network in Switzerland. So the place to be to develop your skills and grow your potential is here with me at Pleiad HC. So one thing I wanted to tell you is basically in June, I'm going to cover the topic selecting work that makes sense to focus. So that's going to be early June. And also you're going to hear more about a presentation I will make in Lausanne. So that's going to be via Friday, which is a club in Lausanne, and going to do a presentation for them on how to basically find career opportunities. So today's agenda is about who you know. It's not what you know, but who you know, very important. I'll give you some basics around networking and then how to develop from there. And of course, you can ask me any questions. That's the goal of today's live Facebook. So I will try to answer your question as I see them on the screen. And if you forgot or you see this video a little bit after, it's okay, just submit your question to me and I'll answer. So without further ado, let's get started. I know you are ready to get a lot of information today. So firstly, it's not what you know, it's who you know. You've probably heard this saying, and I can't say that it's not the case. I mean, I've been working now in career management for the past almost 10 years, and I can guarantee you that it's never been truer than today. It's who you know. So great education is the base. You need a degree, you need education to get out to the world and showcase your skills. That's the base, but if that's all you have, it's not enough today. You also need to have a network. So in 2017, really visibility has become very important. I mean, I remember the days when I was looking for work in the 90s, already. In the 90s, basically, you would just go to a job board and submit your resume. I've done this for probably the first 10 years of my career, and I always had interviews. I think most people at the time did as well, and it was the way you look for a job. We already heard about networking, but it was more minor. Maybe you joined a membership in your field of work. So that's how you would basically increase your network, but it wasn't so big as now, because at the time it was still about submitting resumes online. But nowadays, really, it's become very important to grow a network. So you need to be visible to basically attract your future employer to you. So it's not really you submitting your application, it's you becoming attractive to your future employer. And what I like to tell people is that it's really, you're not everyone's type of employee, so it's okay. You may not attract big companies, or you may only attract big companies, but you have to work around that. It's to know where is your market, who are you going to attract. So that's where it leads to branding. Branding is definitely the word of the 21st century. It used to be more for companies with products. You know, you would basically brand a product, so make it look good and package it and communicate with the right audience. But now that has applied actually to everything else in life. So if you want to find anything basically in life, you have to brand yourself for what you're looking for. So basically, if you're now looking for a job, you need to think, who am I? What type of assets do I have? How do I package myself basically? And that's really where it starts, to be able to engage with people, because if you're not sure, if you haven't worked through these stages, it's going to be hard to explain your value to the people that you will meet. So really starting there, it's who you are, and start thinking a little bit about this notion of branding that I've talked about before, and how you could work on your resume or maybe your social media profile. I know, for example, when I browse through LinkedIn, what really, really surprises me is that people don't have a banner. That's really exciting. I mean, usually they keep the normal banner on LinkedIn, which is really dull. So there's no banner, where you could actually use a lot of writing on the banner to actually showcase also what you're doing. People don't use banners, they don't have keywords, the photo is old. So there's lots of things that you could do to actually improve that immediately and get started. So this is not about branding, so I don't want to get into branding today, but really it's the base to really also have your basic profile. So now going into building a basic network. The first thing there that you need to think about is work on your self-confidence issues, because I find that with people that have been, especially the ones that have been away from the workplace for many reasons, let's say, you know, you took care of children, you followed a partner, etc. There's definitely this sense of being away from the workplace that's putting you in you're far away from work, you're far away from the issues at work. So obviously your self-confidence has gone down, and that's a problem. As a career coach, for me, that's a problem, because then people are not on their best, they're not showcasing themselves to their best side, because they're always polluted by negative thoughts. So I talked in my class yesterday about the reptilian brain, which is basically a part of our brain that was built for survival. And it's the part of our brain that's always there to tell us you're not good enough, it's scary to do this. It's the survival type of thing. So if you live in a city and let's say there's no opportunity close by, your reptilian brain is probably going to tell you anyway, you're not able to look for a job elsewhere. You don't have the skill set. You're not going to be successful anyway. So it's really all these things that are there to pollute us, which affect self-esteem and therefore your success when you meet people. So really working on those self-confidence issues is number one. I've just done a video on Monday on it on my YouTube channel, so you're welcome to look at it. And it's explaining a little bit the situation with self-esteem. So that you need to figure out. The second thing is that you have to know what you want when you're meeting people. So when people start building a network, most of the time they're a bit confused also on what they're looking for. So you have to think about your project, what it is that you're trying to achieve, what type of work are you looking for? And that's something you need to figure out on your own or with a career coach. But it's the preparation before you expose yourself, because the lack of self-esteem will also come back if you haven't really prepared yourself. So if you expose yourself to the world, the first person that's going to meet you, let's say it's a senior executive, you're probably going to stutter because you don't know your speech, you're not sure of what you're supposed to say, you haven't prepared yourself mentally as well. So preparation is really the key. That's what athletes do every day to be very good at what they do. So it's the same with going out to network. It's really preparation and step by step. So after you worked on your self-confidence issues, you know what you want, you have to dress for it. So I see too many people when they go to networking events, they haven't really prepared themselves. They're not really dressed for a networking event. They think maybe it's the go out for a drink type of thing. If you want to be recognized also for your skills, you need to dress a certain way. So it's really, dressing is important. It shows your commitment to yourself as well and your value. If you dress well, you're also putting yourself in a different category. You're someone that you can trust. I mean, why do you think salespeople are always dressed in suits? People that have a commercial role are usually dressed in suits. It's because they need to have people trust them. And they know that dressing well is part of it. So it's something that's not completely superficial. I mean, and I've seen also with the years, actually dressing well has gone down. I see that in companies. It's a little bit of a pity because it's really a very easy way to make a difference. With people that have the same skill set, same experience, if you have someone that's really dressed well, that have invested in a nice suit, it's going to show. So that also helps you when you start networking. So you have built your project, you're dressed properly, and now what you want to do is really start with the close network. So I think to diminish basically the fear of exposing yourself is to start small. It's basically you have a hub of people around you that's more trustworthy that you can start with. So even if you just came to Switzerland or you're recent in your city, there's always going to be a place where you meet people. I mean, it could be people around your children, maybe people who watch your kids, or the bakery or the pharmacist or whoever. Everyone is linked to people. So to get integrated in the country where you are, the city where you are, it's really to start small with the people around you that you already have in your network. But unfortunately, most of the time, people don't say they're looking for a job. Even when I go on LinkedIn with my clients, sometimes they haven't even really stated that they're to watch out for opportunities. Of course, you don't want to say, I'm looking for work, because that sounds a bit desperate. But there's a way, again, going back to how you write your profile, there's a way to show that you're available without being desperate. So it's the same thing when you meet people. You don't have to say, I'm looking for a job and I'm really desperate, but you can say, I'm open for opportunities. I'm new to this city and I've just moved. I followed a partner or whatever, and this is my area of focus, and this is where I would like to find opportunities. So already it's a little bit less desperate than saying I'm looking for work, which is really, sounds a little bit more needy. But then people will be willing to help you. Again, if they know that you're looking, most people want to be helping each other. But it's going against this reptilian brain that's going to tell you, don't say anything about your job search because it looks bad, or it looks that you're desperate, or you can trust other people, etc., etc. So it's really going against all these different barriers, a little bit linked to self-esteem as well. So you want to start with a close network of people and work your way through to increase the exposure. So in other words, if let's say you want to train yourself for a marathon, if you haven't ran in maybe 10 years, you're not gonna start running 10 kilometers or 20 kilometers. You're gonna start running maybe 15 minutes, then 20 minutes. So you want to start with one event that you go to that you think is interesting, that you will enjoy, and where you will meet nice people. And then if that goes well, maybe the following week you go to 2 meetups. And the following week you go to 3. So you have to increase slowly to get a little bit your exposure going for you, and get to meet people that will also reinforce your self-esteem. Because you will realize sooner or later when you go to these meetups that people are the same as you. So you might meet people that are also looking for work, or you might meet people that are actually very nice to you. So it reinforces your trust in yourself. So really my advice would be to go step by step, and you will see that it's not that scary after a while. You will meet people and they will give you feedback, etc., etc. So that's how you start building a network. Is basically to have your project, that you have some idea of where you're going, even if you're not 100%, but you have an idea of where you're going. You know how you want to expose yourself. Of course, I've said this many times, but when you go to networking events, make sure you have networking cards with you. If people ask, you want to show that you're a professional, so you're ready for getting cards and giving and getting cards. And always also get the basics of networking right. So when you meet people, you definitely want to be someone that's recognized as polite, and you're playing really the game of the exchange. So I see too many people that go to networking events and are just there to get something. And that doesn't really work in the long run, especially because networking is not something you're going to get results immediately from. So you can't just imagine that, okay, I met someone yesterday and they're probably going to put me through another person, and next thing I know, I get a job offer. It doesn't really work like this. It takes a long time to build the network. So it's really a long process, and that's why it's very important to start sooner rather than later. So I always tell people, network when you have a job. Or if you lose your job, start immediately. Even if you want to take a holidays, you want to do a training, you have a personal project going on, even if it includes family, etc. You don't want to wait until you're in that position where I need a job immediately because I'm really, really needing a job now, starting next week. Because the time lapse right now to get a job, I would say for a professional in Switzerland, is about a year. So if you're serious about finding a good job, I mean a professional job, you have a 1-year time lapse. So if you need a job immediately, you're already 1 year behind in the waiting game. So that means when you know you're losing your job, you've been laid off, even if you know you have activities going on, you know anyway it's probably going to take a year. So you may as well start immediately. Worst case scenario, even if someone contacts you, you can say, I'm not available yet. I'm still finishing a project or something. I think it's always better if you're the one that's busy and not available immediately than if you're really too available. So anyway, it doesn't hurt to start sooner rather than later, because what's happening, if people contact me, for example, and they say, I really need a job, and I just mentioned it takes almost a year to find a job. I would say 6 months to a year, depending on the job itself. The problem is that I'm not a magician, so I can't make the process faster. It depends on companies, it depends on their own processes. Sometimes there's even an agency in between, etc. So you want to start really soon. So people should contact people like me, career coaches, when they lose their job, not a year later, when it's already a year too late. And then the other problem with that is that now you have a year gap in your resume. So we're basically starting the process with a year gap, knowing it's going to take about 6 months to a year. So it's pushing the process forward. So definitely the reaction, if you know you're going to be needing a job or you're changing careers and so forth, is to be immediately on the project. Even if you're still in your job right now, but you know you want to change, that's when you should be thinking about your project and planning for it, because you know it's going to take time. So you never want to be in a situation where you're starting to think about job search strategy, building your profile and all that when you need a job immediately, because that's already being behind. So I'm mentioning this in this video because it's really a pity when people contact me, and I wish they would have contacted me earlier. When people contact me and say, well, I have a 1 year or I have a 2 year gap in my resume, now I'm really, really desperate. And because the process is what it is, I can't do magic and I have to put people through the motion. So you don't want to wait a year or 2 years to contact a career coach. You want to start immediately when you know you're going to need at some point to change careers or work on your job search. This way it saves you time, saves you money. It also helps with your resume. Gaps are always difficult to go beyond already mentally, because you're going in knowing you have a gap in your resume. So the best way not to have to explain your gap is not to have a gap. So I think that's the easier. So if this can help in this video, arrange your career so that you don't have gaps. So there's always ways that you can forecast or plan for transition so that you don't have to explain the gaps. So third part of this presentation now is about growing your network. So if you have, you've started, you have now a few people that are in your network and you've been in Switzerland now for a little bit. Now you want to go the next step. You want to grow your network, grow your exposure. So what you need to do about this is really start increasing the number of events that you attend. And that's not always easy for most people because of many reasons. You have a family to worry about, you have your job, maybe you're working. It's something that should be a priority if you're really looking to develop your career and go a little bit beyond. It's an investment. It's exactly the same investment as going to take an education. Networking is probably now as important as an education, so you have to give it the same amount of time. I teach master's program. People invest 3 hours of their time twice a week to do the program. So imagine if you were to invest the same amount of time in networking, your job search would change completely. That's 6 hours. Imagine investing 6 hours a week in networking. I mean, that's huge. So I'm really encouraging people to start attending more events. I have a listing of good places to attend events in my, not the last blog, but the blog before, when I talk about best places to network in Switzerland. Usually universities and schools is a good start. Why? Because people go there for development of their skills. So there's usually programs, there's product presentations, leaders who come and talk about their subject matter experts. You have innovation, you have entrepreneurs that go to present. So it's really a huge opportunity to meet change makers and leaders there and to get their card. So for me, the biggest and best networking opportunities is universities. I would say universities and private schools, or it could be also a training institute, but anything linked to education is a good way to start. Then the other place where you can find some good education is also some good networking is also through clubs. So if you're in accounting, for example, you may want to think about accounting groups that you can attend their events. If you're in HR, you want to attend HR type of associations and clubs, so you can also mix up with people that do the same work. So that's a start really of growing your network. And then you can see there's places like eventbrite.com where you can see all the conferences, all the events that are happening in the city where you are, and start booking yourself up. So you look at the events, see the timing, if it works for you, the price. Of course, sometimes it's a little price, or big price depending on who's coming. If it's a big leader that's coming, it could be more expensive. If it's a conference, it's expensive. So you just have to see which ones make sense for you, what you're looking for, and also what value you would get from it. But again, thinking about investing in yourself, you may think, well, 200 francs for a conference, is it worth it? It's better than doing nothing. I mean, I think the worst career move you could make is do nothing. So any event that you're going to attend, even if there's a little price to pay for that, it's going to bring you some value. And again, thinking long term, so it may not bring you value the day of the event, but sometimes I have people contact me a year later to say, yes, and I met you at this event, and it was a year before. So that's what I'm saying. It's a long-term process. I mean, I'm getting now some fruits of my networking efforts, and it's been now, I've been in Switzerland area 10 years, and I've been very active, I would say, the last 3 years. So, and I'm seeing the results of the 3 years work right now. But you see, it's not something that takes just a week or a month. It's really a long-term plan. But again, for your career, for the future of your career, it's going to help you tremendously, because you don't need really networking just to find a job now. You need it for your long-term career. So that's really my message to you, is try to see networking as it's an investment, and it's for my long-term career growth. And because now we're in a global world, it doesn't really matter. You're in a global world. So even if you think I'm investing time now in Switzerland, these people might help you if you were to move somewhere else later. So I'm just taking a little pause right now to grab a little bit of water. Is there any questions yet? Because I'm talking, but I'm there also to answer questions. So moving on, if there's no question yet, maybe you'll think of one. So attending events is going to be important. Check my, I see a question from Tiberian Son. I need, I can't read it. Sorry, I can't read. You need a job in another place? Is that what you're meaning? Maybe you can precise. I'll keep moving and maybe you can precise the question a little bit. So then after attending events, one thing I always recommend is for people to travel, because travel exposes you to more opportunities, more people, and also different mindsets. So there's a mindset maybe in one area, people might think differently in another area, and it's also investing in yourself. So you're not stuck necessarily in Geneva or in Zurich or wherever you are, but you are also opening yourself up. So, for example, there's a client that's coming to see me, and she decided that it was good for her to actually come to see me in Geneva because it would give her an impression on the Geneva market. So sometimes, you know, moving cities just for a day, you know, just taking the train and going to another city, you see also what companies are out there. It could have some benefit. I mean, I think the best way to get to know a market is really to drive. It's just to drive or walk if you don't have a car, but just to see a little bit the economy there. When I was in Bienne, for example, I just walked through the streets a couple of years ago to see a little bit what type of businesses are out there. You know, just walking through the streets. Same thing yesterday, I was in Montreux. I just watched what kind of businesses are out there. Gives you an idea of the economy. Okay, I'm just seeing some questions now. What is the name, from Claudia, what is the name of the website for networking events? So it's www.eventbrite, so event like an event, brite, BRITE.com. And it's one word, Eventbrite attached. So that's the website where you can find pretty much everything in one location. So that's the one I would use. There's another one called meetup.com. It's a little bit less professional events, so it's more people meeting for drinks or around yoga and sports and things like that, but it could be worth checking. Sometimes they have interesting events. So I have another question from Lee. Hello, how can I network if I'm a junior professional, meaning that I cannot offer too much to other people, but I need hello from more senior professions? You need feedback from more senior professions, or hello, I'm not sure. Well, see, when I read this question, I see already I don't have much to offer. We're going back to esteem issues and confidence issues. I think everyone has something to offer, whether you're young or more senior. I'm just impressed when I meet really senior people, the knowledge that they have, and yet, you know, they're not necessarily considered on the market. And it's the same thing with junior. You're junior, you don't have a lot of experience, but maybe you just graduated and you have a good degree that's really wanted by organizations. So it's really looking at what you have and what you don't have. That's the first thing I do in career coaching, is I look at what people have to offer. There's always things, you know, like languages you speak. Maybe you have exposure in a country that's actually very interesting. Maybe that it's also yourself, your motivation. You know, you're coming to our country and you have this motivation to really work there. And I know on my Facebook page, people love my videos on Switzerland. and just watching, you know, what it's like. What's the lifestyle, the Swiss lifestyle, you know, living between mountains and lakes. That's a motivation of its own. You know, I get to work there and I get to participate in this life. So, so your energy, your young energy, because obviously when you're junior graduate, you have a lot of energy. You have these dreams that you want to build things. You want to participate, you know, in the company. So you have a lot to offer. It's just looking at it that way. And I think also more senior people, I just had the case yesterday of someone more senior who was really happy to meet younger people. So I think it's also refreshing for people that are a bit more senior to actually see the new generation that's coming in the market and really share their knowledge. Because I think when you get to a certain level of experience, I'm in that category, you want to share, you want to transition to the younger generation. You know, you've done your part in your career. Now your main mission is to transition over to the younger people. So I think it could be a lot of for the person that's helping you, it could be very rewarding to actually maybe tell you about the market or share their experience with companies in Switzerland. So I wouldn't look at it as what you don't have. It's more mental preparation, is to say, I'm great, you know, I just graduated and I love what I do. I have a lot of energy. I'm dynamic. I'm eager to start working for a company, and that's really you as your business card is you. So really being excited about the job. So I have a question from Shizette Parker. Any advice for third country nationals job hunting in Geneva? Yes, the permit issue, I do get that quite frequently as a question for non-EU. It is an issue if you're looking at private sector, especially because at the moment, I would say that companies work with the locals to fill jobs. And I think for most jobs, again, there's always a place for, especially in the very innovative sector, there would always be a place for someone from abroad. But for most jobs, I call that an accountant, a marketing person, there's always enough on the market usually to fill these jobs. So companies cannot, or they cannot go and do paperwork to hire someone from abroad. And on top of that, they may get rejected. So if they make an offer and they can't get the permit, then it's a problem for them. So at the moment, yes, it's quite closed off, I would say, for non-EU. However, the way to go about that is to look for work in international organizations. So it may not be your career path that you were thinking about, but if you really want to work in Geneva, one route is to go through international organizations. So if you're in a field of work like finance or HR or more the general type of work, you can probably find something in an international organization. But you would have to build up your profile to be seen by those organizations, because as I explained in my previous video, you have to speak the language of the recruiter that you're targeting. So if you've done your career, I don't know where you've done your career, but if you have private sector experience, it's not going to be so interesting for them. So you have to think about what type of wording could I throw in there that people would say, yes, I'm interested in this person, to interview them. So it's really reshuffling your profile to make it look more like an international organization profile. And that's a little bit of branding work there, and exposing your profile a little bit differently. But that's the only road for non-EU right now to want to work in Geneva, is an international organization. So UN, there's a few others that recruit internationally. But yeah, that's the only thing. Okay, so next question for all the viewers. These are the website mentioned by Isabel. Oh, thank you, Claudia, for writing this. Claudia is helping me actually at Pléiades HC. She's someone that's of great talent and very motivated, so I'm sure that she will have a great career in Switzerland. So I think it's all about what really you want to achieve. So if you're really motivated and you really want to achieve something, I think there would be opportunities would come to you. And I really believe that. But the thing is, sometimes as human beings, when we start a project, and I've been there myself, so I know on my journey I've gone through this myself as well, and I actually did this quite a few times. When I'm really excited about something, I start it, I do a little bit, and the first hurdle I get, I think, wow, it's not going to work, and I stop. So it's happened to me, and I know a lot of people go through that as well. When we really want something, it could be playing an instrument, starting sports, learning a language, we start, And then the first thing, it becomes a little bit difficult. We think, oh, it's too much effort or it's too much work, and we get discouraged. And I think that's really, now that I've been thinking about this thing, I really think it makes the difference between the people that win and people that don't. It's really, I think people that win are not necessarily the most intelligent, the better ones, but I think they're the ones who pursue something very actively. So they may get hurdles the same as you, but the difference will be that they hang in there. So they know it might take time and effort, but they don't give up at the first hurdle. They say, okay, you know what, I'm a non-EU. It's going to be a long path for me to get a job, but I'm motivated. If it takes 1 year, 2 years, I will keep trying until I get this job. So there's this sense of really targeting and really being focused, but going at it the right way. So that's why you can't just shuffle and send your resume everywhere. It's not going to work. You need to do it with a proper method. Okay, I have, she said, Parker, who says, thank you, your advice is helpful. I have been trying at the UN. In communication, I've worked at the UN, and I'm not at mid-senior level. And I'm now at mid-senior level, and I'm still finding it difficult to even get an interview. Yeah, especially I find it also strange if you have worked at the UN in communications before, because you already have a foot in the door, so to say. The market is tough. The market is very competitive right now. A lot of people also, because of what's going on in Europe, I think you all know what's going on in Europe right now politically. It's not great. So I think a lot of people are also trying to get into Switzerland to find the better opportunities for their careers. So there's lots of competition that didn't exist a couple of years back. So it's definitely tighter now and harder. So that's why people have to be very patient and very pursue. You know, if they really, really, really want it and they're determined that they will make it work, because it is harder than it used to be. I know when I came here in the region 10 years ago, it was still fast to get a job. But now with the different legal, you know, there were some votations also against a massive immigration. So I think now it's getting a little bit tougher. But again, it doesn't mean impossible. It's just tougher. So, so yeah, it's not easy to get those job interviews. What I do with people in my program, in my career planning program, is that we really go at it with method. So basically everyone that contacts me is in the same position, in the sense that they're either looking for a job or they're usually expat, etc. And they don't really have the techniques. So they may know even where they want to go or have an idea of their job, but they don't have the technique to go about it. So in other words, they may not have built up their profile. They may not know what their branding is or what they have to offer or where to target. So these, for me, is more the technique. So there's the wanting the job and being motivated, but then there's also technique. So what's the best strategy to get what I want? And really equipping yourself. So it's the same as getting a degree. It's really giving yourself the technique, the know-how to get what you want. So in this tough job market that we have right now, it's definitely good to get also some technique to understand, you know, in 2017, what am I missing now? Because I can't look for a job the way my parents did, or maybe the way my brothers and sisters did, you know, 10 years ago. Everyone wants to help. I mean, that's the beauty of it. I think in job search, everyone wants to help. Everyone wants to give you feedback. I'm talking about friends and family. Usually they're very supportive, but they're not professionals. So whatever they tell you may be helpful in a way, especially mental help, I mean, support, but they don't have the technique. They don't know. That's why people like myself, who are trained to do this job, which is to help people find jobs, we have techniques. You know, we know what type of things that need to happen so that people can get a job. So it's really getting the difference between the friends and family that are really nice people, but not necessarily equipped to help you, and then professionals out there that are really there to give you that push that you need to get you to what you want to go. So it's again, it's investing in yourself, just the way you would do it when you do a master's, when you know you want to be a manager and you say, I need to invest X amount so that I can get myself to the next level. So I think it takes giving a little to get a little. It's the circle of life. So thanks for your great questions. So I just wanted to give you a few more things, and then I'll keep checking online just to see if there's more questions coming. So the next thing that's very important for me is to always provide value before you want people to give you value. So that's usually how it works, is that people will be more responsive if you have given them something. So in other words, if you meet somebody, and I always use the example of restaurants, because if you're thinking, I'm unemployed right now, I'm looking for a job, you can't really offer maybe something professional related, but you may be able to offer, maybe you're a great cook and you've been to a lot of restaurants and you know good restaurants, and that's something you can offer as a tip of advice to somebody you're talking to. So I always think when I meet someone, what can I offer this person? You know, what, based on what they need at that particular moment, before I want to give my pitch, before I want to push my my job search there. So I have more questions here. Maybe you have time to look about the job in another country. Oslo, I'm sorry for my English if I make mistake. I need you because I see you're professional in that. Yeah, well, for basically job search, like the personal job search based on your profile, then what you can do is send me a message on Facebook, and then we can look at it later, you know, if you want me to, if any of you, it's just not the question I'm getting here, if any of you now think, okay, you know, maybe it's a good idea that I contact Isabel to work on my situation, definitely send me a message and I'll get back to you. That's the idea. Yeah, definitely more the personal, because this Facebook Live, I'm trying to give you information that's broad, but then there's the personal case, which is you. And everyone is different. You live in a different city, you have different background, etc. So then it becomes more personal. Yes, with the resume, it's always good to include the resume, because I need to see a little bit what you've done. So yeah, I think this idea of providing value before receiving from people is always a good idea, because you're showing already that you're someone who wants to bring something to the world. And that's the problem I find with resumes, and especially cover letters that people send, is that they're immediately applying before they're saying, I'm sending my resume and this is my background. They're not even looking at the problem the company is trying to solve. So you have companies out there that are solving big problems. I mean, they're bringing food to the poorest people. They're bringing vaccination. I worked for an organization that did that, bringing vaccination to the developing countries. You're providing IT solutions, or I don't know, it could be very wide. So every company has their mission that they're driven towards, and they have their issues that they're trying to solve. So as someone who wants to work for this company, you need to position yourself as a problem solver. That's what people are hiring. They're hiring people that can help them get more clients and solve their problems. So you have to fit yourself in that scenario, and then people will start looking at you differently. They won't see you as a job seeker, but as a solutions provider. So it's really putting on your hat of consultant, project manager, which I use quite a bit in my presentation. You're a project manager, you're a consultant, you're there to solve problems that companies have, whether it be in finance, in marketing, in PR, in HR. So you're putting on your cap of problem solver, and then companies will start looking at you differently. It's like, this person is coming to me and first of all, has an idea of what my problems are. Most people haven't looked. They just maybe browse the website very quickly, but the way they present themselves, you can tell they haven't really looked deeply into the problems of the organizations. So really try to get a fit for what is this company trying to achieve, and how can I help them achieve it? And then when they meet you in an interview, they can see that you're really a person of value, that you will help them, that you will grow their business. Those are all buzzwords that I think companies want to hear. They don't want someone who's there to demand something. And that's really a shift from, I think, even if you're not an entrepreneur right now because you're looking for salaried work, is to imagine thinking a little bit like an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is there to grow something and to build things. So you're not necessarily there to get a salary and benefits. You're there to bring something. So that will make a huge difference. So yeah, I see here online, that's a good start. Yes, that's definitely a good start to work on that. So never ask directly for anything when you meet someone in a networking event, not even bringing your resume. I know people say, well, should I bring anything? You don't want to bring already any resume or anything to get feedback immediately at the networking event. The networking event is just to mingle and exchange cards. It's very superficial, so you're not going to get very deep at that stage when you meet someone. Maybe you talk about your hobbies, maybe you talk about what's going on at the event. If there's a mutual interest, probably you see each other afterwards. You go for a coffee or for lunch, you exchange a bit more, then you see if there's a mutual interest. It has to be mutual, obviously. But at that stage, when you meet people, you have to keep it very light. And that's not always easy because, again, there's this notion of needing a job and wanting to move faster through the process. But with networking, it takes time, and relationship building takes time. Trust takes time. In Switzerland, that's a big thing. That's a bit different maybe from other countries, is that people take time to trust you. So, for example, in resumes, you need to put a lot of details on there, personal details, because people need to get to know you and know who you are. So that just gives you a little bit of background on the culture. So you don't want to, you have to let people come to you slowly, basically. That's the rule of the game in Switzerland, is that people will warm up to you very slowly. So you can expect, if you come from a country where things happen fast, you exchange on Monday and on Tuesday you're already doing business together. It doesn't happen that way in Switzerland. People take time. They take time to trust you, to include you, to give you something. So it's okay. It's part of the culture. You just need to be patient and appreciate that. But usually once you have the connection, it's for the long term. People really build things for the long term here. And if they network with you, they want to keep you in their hub for the long term. So that's my message there, with a little bit of the Switzerland culture. So the other thing I wanted to say is that you want to try to keep yourself active during this job search part, basically, because if you're not keeping yourself active, then it's going to probably diminish your self-esteem, your self-confidence. So you want to have a sense of, maybe taking some courses at that time, maybe volunteering somewhere. So anything that gives you some sense of accomplishing something, because if you're going to a networking event and you really don't have much to say other than you've been on job boards all day, it's not going to be making you feel good about yourself. So just the fact that you're volunteering, maybe part-time, just the fact that you're maybe catching up on a personal project, whatever that be, photography, volunteering your time for an association, it's always going to be better. It's something you can talk about both in networking events and in interviews. It's something that's going to increase your self-esteem. So there's lots of benefits from that that's going to help you, rather than to do nothing. So doing nothing is really the worst, again. And also the other message that's really a saying, just like it's not what you know but who you know, the other big saying is it's easier to find a job when you have a job. And those two sayings, I think, are very true. And when I talk to recruiters regularly, it's just confirming to me that they prefer people who are active in a job. So that's why probably what you want to do is make sure that you're doing something, that you're on the active mode. So if you don't have a job, again, try to find something like volunteering, or just do something that makes you active. The last piece of advice I would give someone is to quit without having a job. And I've had clients who came to me obviously afterwards, so they quit first and they came to see me after. It's already putting yourself in a less attractive position because you don't have a job. So when companies are looking for resumes in applications, they will always prefer the ones that have jobs, always. So you're already in the category that's secondary in their choices, the person that doesn't have a job. That said, they can still interview you, you can still get the job maybe at some point, but you're already not the preferred person. So you have to keep that in mind, that you have to keep yourself active. And even if you're doing some volunteering or some activities, it's never as good as being in a job. So really, really, my big advice right now, if you're young or you're thinking about how you're going to plan your career, especially for women, always keep yourself in the job. So you're going to say, well, what if I have children, etc. What I would do is keep it to a very low percentile, which is what a lot of women do, but always stay active. So even if you work 10% of the time or 20% of the time, but you're in the active. What you don't want to do is be zero activity, so meaning you left the job and you're outside of the market, because then it's very hard to come back. And I test that every day with women, mainly because they're the ones who are the most affected. But once you leave the job market, coming back is extremely difficult. So now you have a few programs that are out there, very few. So it's return to work type of programs for people who have been away, especially women, but it's not there yet. So you can't count on that, especially in Switzerland, to help you really get a job. So again, the best way to not have a career gap or dealing with a career gap is not to create one. So in other words, to keep your career really linear and to always be in some type of activity, and this way you won't have to explain gaps. Because gaps are always putting you, again, in that second category of people, and you have to work twice as hard to bring your value back to the table. So when you have people who have been keeping their career going their entire life, then you would have to be the one that's actually very active, very dynamic, explaining why you left the job market and why you're returning. So it's a little bit almost double work now to come back. So as I mentioned, yeah, find your dream job when you're already working is always easier, because once you leave the workplace, it's putting yourself already in a difficult job situation. Now for students, so if you're a student right now and you're finishing school or you're thinking about what you're going to do next, you need experience. So what I find with the student type of crowd there is that people sometimes are looking for the big companies that are recruiting, and it doesn't necessarily work out that way. You may be called by a big company, and that's great. I think everyone wants to work with L'Oreal or Nestle or P&G. Those are the desired companies. But sometimes what I find with the students is that they focus so much on these companies that they forget everything else that's out there, and then the gap also starts to build. So you don't want to be a year, 2 years without anything because you're targeting the big companies. You want to keep your broad, very, very broad type of spectrum of options. So even if you have a startup that needs someone to help, or you have a small company that offers you, maybe it's not your ideal job, but you need to start. I mean, when I started, I was doing a lot of filing for sure. I mean, I'm not ashamed to talk about it. I did a lot of filing and a lot of printing and a lot of answering phone calls, and that was the beginning of my career. So I think what you need is business experience. So you start very young, you do a job and you show that you can do more, then people give you more, and that's how you grow your job. But finding the ideal, I think now there's also a message that's sent through social media, to have a startup or to be your own business and all that. You need experience. So I think the first thing when you graduate is really to get experience, and any experience is good for you. That will teach you business, it will teach you behaviors, it will teach you to sell yourself. Also, it will teach you to have some technique also in your whatever field you picked. You need method and you need expertise, and then you can go and build your own business for sure. So that's a little bit of the reality that I wanted to bring in, because I think there's this myth of I just graduated and I'm going to be the next startup owner and make millions. I wish that for everybody, for sure. But with the reality, I think it's good to get some experience, learn business, learn your skill set of your area, whatever it be, marketing, finance, or anything. And once you're very well equipped and you have experience, then you can start your own business and really do well. So that's the way I would present it. So is there any other questions with how you go about networking or developing your network? I'm just trying to see if there's no more question. Maybe I'll close off the Facebook group right now, or the Facebook live talk. So again, next one is going to be on selecting work that makes sense to focus. So it's more about really finding the thing that you were supposed to do in your life. So it's a little bit of career orientation there. So again, I try to have topics that are quite varied and interesting for you to watch. If you have a topic that you haven't seen in my Facebook Live agenda until the end of the year, feel free to send me an email and say, why don't you talk about this topic? Because I'm also taking in your needs of what you're looking for. So if there's no more questions for today, I'll let you go. Again, happy to answer your questions on Facebook if you send me an email, any other platforms as well if you're watching this video from YouTube or LinkedIn. I talk to you later. Bye-bye.